is the Diary of a Lady Band Director podcast, brought to you by the Passion Is Network.
Oh my goodness. I don't know what to say. There's so much black excellence on the screen. I'm gonna lose my mind because I know all of y'all are dope musicians. I'm not worthy. I'm gonna go all the way back to the 90s. I'm not worthy. I just play when I need money. That's not very often. So maybe I'll get some information from y'all because sis, okay, I'll talk about that a little later. But first of all, welcome. Thank you, can't thank you enough for spending Friday the 13th with me, Krystal Williams, aka Lia Alexander, director, aka BLBD, on my podcast. And tonight is not an all-lady podcast. This is just black excellence on the screen, which there are some dope black women and some dope black men, and I'm all for it. So, without further ado, if you are just signing on, hit that like, hit that share, hit that. Even y'all on here, listen. I'm myself. I'll vote for myself. I'm telling you right now, I'll vote for myself if it comes down to it, because I want to win. Black people need to learn how to win. We be all, y'all know how we do. We be all like, nah, I don't want to impose myself. I want myself to be careful. I want to win. And I can be talented and smart too about the business. Y'all gonna share with us tonight how to be smart about the business of being a musician, and specifically being a black musician, a person of color, that's gonna thrive, not just survive. We not on gas money no more, y'all, because gas high anyway. Everything high. We got to get past. I just need money to get there. No, I need money to thrive there. So our topic today is thriving or just surviving. It's an off the cuff with black musicians, as you see on the screen, black excellence. And just to let you know, off the cuffs are literally, okay, so y'all got questions, and I didn't say this in advance, so sorry if you didn't get this in like the 2 emails I sent. Off the cuffs, yeah, we'll ask a question, but sometimes y'all will say something that sparks another question. So this is going to be very fluid. Don't be all uptight. Yes, you are branding yourself. And of course, you got to protect the bag, but speak freely. This is my platform. This is my show. And I protect us at all costs. So, if you mean it, stand by it, because it's your truth. And I want it to be about our truth, not somebody else's truth. All right. Without further ado, I have to see. I ain't got this script down like our producer. Our producer he has like a voice that can read. I feel like all right, I'm just gonna do it. Got put on the radio voice. Wait a minute, I just noticed I ain't even got my script. All right. Welcome to the Diary of a Lady Band Director podcast. It is the only podcast run by a Black woman in everything music education and band. If you're just joining us, please hit that share button, hit the like button as soon as you enter, and put comments in the chat. Later on in the show, we will post a link if you would like to ask some of our panelists or myself questions, or you would like to share some insight. At the end of the podcast, we like our viewers to mic up, of course, and if possible, be on screen. We don't need that Zoom box, daddy. That's the only time I'm gonna say daddy. People said I'm doing it too much, and I sound like a Black parent trying to be cool using slang. So without further ado, we're gonna go around and we're gonna introduce ourselves. I know a little bit about y'all because y'all sent me wonderful resumes that made me feel less about my degree, but it's okay. I know what I signed up for, and we're gonna start with Mr. Ford. Mr. Ford. And if you're not speaking, if you can hit mute, because we're going to get everything that happened in the background.
So, hi everyone, I'm Dr. Ron Ford. I am a professor of music at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, where I teach oral skills and music theory, and also at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, where I teach multiple woodwinds and woodwind pedagogy. I'm a graduate of the North Carolina School of the Arts also, with my bachelor's and master's in oboe performance, and I have my doctorate in oboe performance with a cognate music theory, pedagogy, and multiple woodwinds, which means I specialize in not specializing and being as marketable as possible. What else do you know? Is that good?
You got kids? You got family?
So I want to go that far. Okay, so I have 2 kids. My husband and I have kids, and they're 6 and 8, a 6-year-old girl and an 8-year-old boy. Rambunctious as all get out, of course. Family, other side of playing music, I'm playing a couple symphonies, playing all over the place around the state, in musical theater, opera, wherever I need to go, I'll go, and I'm a big chameleon of different styles. Outside of music, I'm always riding my motorcycle if I can. I'm also, if you can see my green screen back here, recording my Ron Ford Orchestra videos. So if you ever look for the video, this is where the magic happens, right there on that green screen. Yeah.
First of all, the first time I met this brother, it was during the pandemic, and I'm gonna say virtually. And I was trying to put together, those little virtual things, and Professor Ford by himself in an orchestra by himself. I was like, God damn, I can't do this. I'm not cut out. I'm not. And this brother plays so many instruments well. It's just like insane. Like he could go in the studio and really just cut all the tracks himself. I ain't got that much talent. I'm just gonna be honest, and don't you dare ask me to sing. Thank you, Brother Ford. On to a longtime friend of mine, a fair Morganite, Cybil Dunn Corbin. Tell us a little bit about you. I know a little bit about you, but you're going to tell us a lot about you.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I am Cybil Dunn Corbin, without the S. It's just something I can't seem to get my phone to stop doing when I put my name into anything. So I am, although we went to Morgan together, Krystal, I'm actually a Boston-based saxophonist. And I'm teaching at several schools, doing the adjunct faculty. That is my very high-spirited, energetic child in the background. He is just going to be sending us all these good voicings while we're talking today. So yeah, I currently teach at Bunker Hill Community College, Salem State University, and I'm visiting faculty at Longy School of Music at Bard College. In addition to that, I'm co-founder with Adrian Baker of North Star Duo, and we are dedicated to expanding wind repertoire, creating accessible music, and commissioning new works for wind instruments. As I just mentioned, I have 1 child, but sometimes I feel like it's 5. I don't know, or a whole classroom. Maybe that might be a better way to describe it. He's 3, and he is just a ball of energy, happy energy most of the time. And yeah, we're just happy there's no snow on the ground right now in good old Boston.
You up in the north. Listen, Cybil, came to Morgan with a Barry sax and was spitting notes out that Barry sax. And I was like, oh, okay, the new talent's here. Because I'm a little older than Seychelle, a little bit. I'm not gonna age myself that much. But I was like, damn, this the new leaders of the new school, huh? I was so impressed by Seychelle. And she was in jazz band, and I was like, yeah, I like to see that because we don't always be in jazz band. When I say we, I'm talking about the Black women, just women in period. So Seychelle, you super dope. I love it. Let me see. Any, mini, money, mo. I'm gonna go with Jarvis, aka Jeb Barnes, and you gotta tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, appreciate you having me. I think I'm a little bit different than the panel so far. I don't teach anywhere, actually. I am a full-time musician here in Los Angeles. I tour and do session work. I also run a successful YouTube channel called Drumming with Jarvis. And on that primary channel, I essentially break down for the basics to the general population of what happens during music, which is kind of cool. With some entertainment as well. So they're like, oh, I never heard that in the back. I never heard those backgrounds. Like, yeah, just like little things that we as musicians kind of take for granted. I know she just mentioned Boston. I attended Berklee College of Music, left after my second semester, and went back to Philly. I'm originally from Delaware, went back to Philly, played for a while, and then I was like, cool, I'm out of resources here. And then within 2 weeks, I just moved to Los Angeles. So that's currently where I reside, and I've worked with some pretty cool artists. I've done tech work and drumming and all this other stuff. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades in the live touring world.
Well, welcome, Jarvis. I have a question about Berklee because I often get students who want to go there. Sure. There's a lot of rumors about Berklee, or they might not be rumors. You might confirm or affirm or deny based on whether or not you can even say it's the truth. But
sure.
Thank you for joining us. I'm gonna go over to Ramona Douglas, who I met on a dope gig. Man, okay, so I met Ramona on a gig that literally happened on the fly. because we literally, this is one of them gigs where you get a text message or from a friend and you think that they playing with you. Because that's how I felt. Like, yes. Boy, if you don't get off my phone playing like that, don't say stuff like that. But we was on this really dope gig. Hopefully, like, people will get to see like some footage from it. But I was like, damn, the flute section is lit. I mean, it was a flute section of dreams and like fairy tales and like pixie dust. Like it's the flute section everybody wish they had. One in tune. You already know, like I teach school, so what do you do with a flute section if you wanted to be in tune? Kill everybody except one, but not them. Everybody was a monster. So Ramona, if you would introduce yourself and tell us about you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I hope everybody can hear me okay. So my name is Ramona Douglas. I am originally from Philly. I'm back here in Philly now. I did my undergrad at Trinity in DC, and then I took a break and went through a lot of trial and error and ups and downs and not really sure if I could make it as a musician type thing. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go back to school. So I started going back to school in University of Minnesota. And then I ran into some crazy folks called Adelante Winds at the Monty Winds Chamber Music Festival. And they invited me to be their permanent flutist. So I moved to Texas and got my master's degree from Texas State University. And the rest is kind of history. I'm still a member and flutist and development coordinator at Adelante Winds. We focus on composers of underrepresented communities. We also like to focus on educational programming to help enhance chamber music at a younger age, rather than just waiting until they get to college to do chamber music. So we offer a free chamber music camp every summer to try to get some younger students involved in chamber music. I'm also currently a teaching artist for the Philadelphia Orchestra. So that's kind of my main gig right now. And that's it. I'll play flute. I'll play sax if I have to. I'll play clarinet if I have to. You know how it goes. The doublers in the room know what it's about.
We know the woodwinds know. You better play whatever got a reed or internal duct.
Right. So if anybody's saw my status over the holiday break, I unexpectedly had an alto saxophone in my hand, and that was not planned that day. So,
I definitely saw it. I was like, oh, she plays sax too. I saw it. I'm a little bit of a Facebook creep. I be all on y'all favorites. Like I'm that silent stalker fan. I was like, yes, you go. You better play. They don't know I'm right here, but you know what? Yeah, you better play. I'm rooting for you.
I appreciate that support.
Oh man, I told you this is a star-studded event, and I shouldn't even be on my own podcast at this point. I'm gonna go to Emmanuel Manny Scott. I feel like Manny, like reading your bio, I was like, this is the person that if I was chilling after an event or something, we would be running our mouths. All right, Mr. Scott, you got the floor.
Hey everybody, thank you for having me. My name is Emmanuel Scott. I go by Manny. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, but I am now living in New York City. I am a music educator at Liberty Avenue Middle School in Brooklyn. I teach band, I teach general music, and I teach step as a class, not just after school. So it's been really cool, really doing this. I've only been for 3 years. That was my first school, and I've been building something great. So it's been really good. I graduated from Tennessee State University with a degree in music education. And then I went to Southern Illinois University and I got my degree in percussion performance. I am kind of percussionist if you want, orchestral percussion, drum set, hand drum, jazz, whatever you need is kind of what I do. I specialize in that because my other thing that I want to do is musical theater and Broadway. Most recently, I just performed in Stomp. I've been in Stomp for 1.5 years, and I don't know if you guys heard, Stomp New York City cast. The show just closed. It's been around for 29 years, 11,000 performances. Stomp just closed, and I was a part of the closing cast as the closing Particle Man. So literally last Sunday, I performed my last show in New York City. So yeah, still kind of emotional about that, but we keep it moving. We do what we got to do as musicians. So yeah.
Dope. See, you still in the classroom, so I don't know if y'all saw my post about the inmates running the asylum. You don't have to look like that, Mr. Ford. Yeah, but it's egregiously crazy. We're not gonna talk about that tonight. We're gonna leave that. We got 3-day weekend, Mr. Ford, Mr. Scott. All right. Mr. Bernard Long Jr., this is your moment to tell us about you. Oh, you still muted. Uh-oh, the spirit of Quan's audio has struck. If you ever pay attention or listen to some of the podcasts, there are a lot of podcasts. There's a brother named Quan who always get got by the internet devil. I don't think you, wait a minute. Ain't got it. Got it. Not the mute button, no. You might have to, if your sound's not working, you might have to come in and out. That always work. Link will work. Somebody get you back in. I think what? Are we hot?
Well, I shift A if that didn't work.
But we can hear you. Okay, we did hear you. Uh-oh, I think he gets stuck. Unmute me. I don't know what he did, but you were heard before.
That was me.
Okay, we can hear you.
That was me, Ron. Try hitting Shift A, and it might get a shortcut for you.
See, look, we getting PD right now. See, I ain't got no unmute options. You might have to come back in and come out. You might be a audio connect. Well, I'm gonna see. This is why. Listen, talk about being prepared. You know, this is what they teach you in college, right? I'm gonna read about this brother because this brother understood the assignment, like everybody on the screen, and sent me his resume. Let me pull that up. I might even be able to share the screen. Oh, now we're gonna move slow. Well, one, thank you for being on. When he come back, we're gonna talk about him. But first of all, let's talk about this. Half y'all percussionists. What happened? Like I was like, okay, it's either woodwind or percussion. We have no brass, and in particular, no trumpet players. And I found that interesting because I did invite trumpet players. I feel like there's a little bit of that spirit of what trumpet players believe that, like, I don't know, they feel like they above, we're beneath them. I don't know. We do not consort with woodwinds and percussionists. We do not consort. Don't you laugh, Seychelle. You know that's how they act. That's why they're not here. But maybe I'll do a trumpet show. Maybe they're waiting for the trumpet show. But anyway, let's talk about Mr. Bernard. I got to pull it up on my phone because I got one too many screens open. All right. So, one, I'm going to say the important stuff. I'm going to say the important stuff. Try to read because he sent me like a 3-page letter. One, Bernard Long Jr. graduated for his BM in Jazz Studies 2009 from Northern Illinois University under the leadership of Professor Ron Carter. That's the part we got to say out loud because all of us on the screen know who Ron Carter is. Ron Carter received an award at Midwest. He's like one of the most noted, woodwind jazz instructors, performers. And so this man studied under him. I was gonna say I went to the wrong school, but that's kind of like sacrilegious when you go to HBCU. You can't say that out loud. One, he performed in the world-renowned NIU Jazz Ensemble, toured with greats like Clark Terry, Benny Golson, Rodney Whitaker, and Peter Erskine. Graduated from Michigan State in 2012 with a master's in jazz studies. Listen, we're going to talk a little bit about jazz. Got an MAT in music in 2016 and is an adjunct professor of jazz drum set at Linwood University. He's a band director at Madison Junior High, Senior High School in Madison, Illinois, where he started the music program via Zoom during the pandemic. This brother dope. When this brother come back on, we're going to just give him some little reaction tools around here somewhere. I don't know. It's kind of like Zoom on steroids. So we're going to do a virtual round of applause. But I'm going to kick us off with this first question because everybody want to hear more from y'all than me because, I ain't nobody. Let's first start by saying I play clarinet in the basement. I play flute in the basement and I play saxophone in the basement. I play piano as a teacher. Some very boisterous, funny, talented musicians at the Northwestern High School for the Performing Arts under the Jim Henson program, where Jim Henson himself went to school. And my kids, I gotta say it out loud, some of my kids can smoke me playing, like right now, high school. And they're all black and brown, so it's pretty dope. All right, we can hear you now.
I moved to my phone. I don't know what's up with my laptop.
Yep. Well, I talked about the fact that you studied under Ron Carter, which is one of my idols. And you're a band director. You started a band doing Zoom. You went to Illinois State, right?
Northern Illinois University.
Okay, and you're at Linwood University currently?
I teach there as well, yes.
All right. How many of us are adjunct professors right now? Look, the other side, the middle of my screen is like, I just play, y'all. I just play. I don't do that. All right. So without further,
I was.
You was. Smart girl, smart girl. All right, there's a question I put in the chat, and it's a question I'm reading to you all. What made you decide to pursue music performance as a career? And we're going to treat you like Black church. When you want to speak, just put up the church finger and go ahead and unmute yourself. Mr. Ford, you got the floor.
I'll go ahead. So in high school, I played music all my life. I started when I was 6. Started on piano and then moved to strings and woodwinds through middle school and high school. And I was also really good at computer science and programming. And my dad, my parents, the Black parents trying to push you into the computer side, go where the money is, go where the money is, go where the money is. But I knew that I wanted to get up every morning, and I didn't want to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, way early and have to go write programs. I knew I wanted to get up in the morning. If I had to get up that early, I'm not a morning person, but if I have to get up that early, playing music is what I would want to do that early. And it was one of those things that's always been a passion of mine. Learning instruments has always been one of those passions. Playing music. I've always been what my students and I call, I'm a diva. I have a whole orchestra myself, but I love playing music. I am really a soloist. I love being in front of the orchestra. I love being, I love just playing. So that was one of the things I just knew I needed to do. It was my love, and I knew that I would make it work somehow. I would put the hours in. I would get up, lose the sleep, as long as I knew I was doing what I really loved doing. So that was my my push to be a musician rather than going in the computer science field, which probably would have made me more money, but I might not have been as happy.
I understand that because my husband is a tech. I'm just gonna say that. I got 3 degrees. That's all I'm gonna say. Got 3 degrees, man. He's not bound to a clock. He don't have to deal with bad kids. He don't have to deal with none of that. But he does play. He's a musician. Going around, I'm gonna go weird. Like nobody gonna throw up the church finger. Y'all giving me a stone call. Like don't pick me. All right, Seychelle, you got the floor.
So I think my story might be just a little bit different. I think when I was at Morgan with you, Krystal, last year, because we ain't gonna tell folks how old we are. I didn't know if I actually wanted to be a performer, although I was a performance major. I will solo, play concertos and sonatas and all that stuff. It's not really, sorry, my son's coming over here, so it's just going to get loud for a second. I like to play those things, but for me, it's not necessarily where I feel like my true full artistic self. For me, it wasn't until I was a student at Lange School of Music and I started chamber playing that was actually when I realized that was what I enjoyed and what I wanted to do as a saxophonist. I don't care about styles because as a saxophonist, I feel like I got to be able to do all of them. But for me, it was playing in quartets and playing in, woodwind groups. Sorry, I just trying to time it, y'all. And I also really enjoy playing with concert band. Like I enjoy being an ensemble musician, I think is what I discovered. But it took me a while to realize that was what I wanted to do.
That's interesting that I don't know. I always thought that performance majors knew they wanted to be a performance major and music ed majors knew they wanted to be a music ed major. But now I'm a little older. Like, I think I really didn't really know myself. I just went into probably the path that I thought I was supposed to go, if that makes sense. And I really didn't have any confidence in my playing ability to perform. But then I realized performing is just that. So we'll talk about that a little later. Mr. Scott, how did you get into what brought you into this field, this wonderful field?
Okay, so it's a little different. You know how you have educators, they got to be an educator. I found out, like when I was in middle school, I was like, I teach. I grew up in Atlanta. I went to Southwest as a marching band culture in Atlanta. I was like, you know what? I'm going to teach in Atlanta and build the best marching band ever, and that's going to be it. I'm going to be an educator. Then I went to Conn-Selmer Institute for a year and ended up having a random conversation with a guy who made costumes for Broadway. And in my mind, it just popped up because I didn't know, because I was very outside of musical theater at the time. Do Broadway pits have musicians? And I looked up Broadway percussion and saw a GoPro video of somebody playing 1,000,000 instruments. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So from that conversation, it's like, I want to be an educator. And it kind of just opened up a world of being an educator and a musician that kind of brought me to the world of musical theater and pit playing and all of that stuff. And now it's kind of like, and Stomp just threw me for a whole nother loop. So I'm kind of like, performing is what I like to do. It keeps me sane. I can teach all day, but performing is what keeps me and not just a teacher, you know? So that's kind of how my journey for performing kind of came.
I like that. Keep me. Because I don't think I'm me if I was sitting at a desk. I don't know. They keep trying to push me in admin. I ain't feeling that at all. No, that's the devil. Mr. Barnes, it's your turn. First of all, I'm admiring kind of, he has the musician, he has the classic drummer persona, like the cool hat, like that, you know, drummers, they live their coolness.
We're the lamest people on the planet. Bass players are the coolest people. They're like, their swag is different. They walk in a room with different kind of stuff to them. Like, y'all need to relax. All right, turn your cool down a little bit. But yeah, performance for me wasn't actually my first choice. I actually thought I wanted to be an educator, and then I looked at the criteria and all the other stuff, and I just wasn't interested in learning other instruments besides drums, and that was a deterrent. So I was like, I don't want to blow into my instrument. I have no interest at all to learn any string instruments, and I just never did anything I didn't want to do. It's probably why I struggled so much. So yeah, once I kind of figured out that lane, I was like, all right, cool. Let me really devote my life to just playing. So I was just in the basement, reading well, playing, making mom angry by, banging on pots and pans when I was little, that kind of stuff. And then I did my first tour when I think I was like 16, and that was in Europe. And I was like, what? Okay, this is cool. And the roads, I think it was like Dinkelsbühl in like Germany or something. And it was pouring rain. Like, I mean, pouring rain. And I thought, all right, cool. We're about to be playing to nobody. This is about to be a paid rehearsal. Sounds great. Packed. I mean, completely packed. And I was like, okay, well, if music brings people out of their home to enjoy something, I'm in. So, and then once I realized that what we played on stage could impact everybody's emotion in the audience, then I was like, yep, I'm in. And then once you really dive into that beast, you respect the craft a lot more, because we all know like music is not always like the most enjoyable process. However, when you start performing and you can see everybody's face forget their troubles, it's all worth it. So yeah, I think that was really it for me. Is this, once I realized that, okay, let's figure it out.
So the one thing I like is that you started young, and this is actually part of a question, because I think, I don't know, we'll talk about it. I gotta get through the first question before I go all the way off the cuff. Ramona, how'd you start? What made you do it?
Well, my story is a little different in that I grew up in a musical household with a parent who's already a musician. So there were always rehearsals in my house and all that sort of thing. And he did a little bit of everything. He's classically trained, but he also did jazz. And then there was like some African group that he was part of for a while, and then he did Latin and stuff. So there were just like all different kinds of things going on in my house. So I grew up. I started playing violin when I was 7, and so my quote unquote doubling for a long time was actually violin and flute, until I got into high school and they're like, okay, you need to learn these other woodwinds and stuff too. It's like, all right, I guess. But so I like A lot of you, though, also expected to go into the route of education. But I was always very adamant that I wanted to be an educator who continued to play very well and continue to gig, if nothing else. I wanted to continue to play no matter what. And then weird things happened with my schooling in undergrad. Ended up getting a fine arts degree with a music performance concentration. And then after that, I just kind of realized I really wanted to play. I mean, it's not like I didn't do any teaching, and I still do a lot of teaching now. I have my own set of lots of black and brown kids that I'm teaching for the Philadelphia Orchestra, which is really great. They fund the whole thing, and I get a bunch of, you know, black and brown children to, play the flute and to do band. And our program is really pretty awesome the way it's set up. Um, so that's kind of how I fell into it. I just ended up really realizing how much I wanted to perform and that I really could do both. Like I could perform, but I could also, teach as well. And then especially once I fell into chamber music, that's really where I found my niche. And I wasn't again, it was kind of the willingness to take a chance on myself that really led me to continue the performance part of it.
One, I think it's cool that you highlight the fact that we need more of us promoting us to do it as kids, because I think we might all kind of be from a common generation where it wasn't a lot of us, still not a lot of us, depending on what domain of music you are performing. So the fact that you're doing that, and the fact it's kind of cool that most of us are not from music backgrounds, like families. Like my family, I was actually talking about this in the staff lounge, where it's just my cousins. Like we are the musicians, but everybody before us, nah, not a musical bone. Or if it is, there it's broken. it's not.
My dad is the only one.
Oh, your dad is the only one.
He's the only one. Everybody else tone deaf.
Oh no.
Every other kind of deaf. Well, I will say my mom's side of the family, they can sing. I will say that. My side of the family definitely has some singers, but beyond that,
I identify with that. My mother sings happy birthday to me every birthday early in the morning. It's not good. It's not good. She know it's not good. And I'd be like, oh, I love you too, Mom. Please don't. Let's not do it today. But I appreciate it. And I love the fact that she knows it brings a smile to my face. At least that. My son, it has perfect pitch. My husband has perfect pitch. Guess who doesn't have perfect pitch? My roommate in my house has perfect pitch. I'm in a house of 3 people with perfect pitch, and I'm the one who's a teacher.
I want to say I'm sorry because I know what it's like dealing with people who have perfect pitch.
3 people, including the 12-year-old, and it's just starting to get sickening. I was like, boy, shut up. Go clean up your room.
Did they hear random sounds and say it's F sharp? The door closed. Oh,
does anybody have pitch on the panel? No. See, like, man.
And I teach oral skills, so I don't have perfect pitch either. So as the oral skills teacher, and it's a good parlor trick though.
Yeah, we teach the same stuff adjunct wise. So trust me, I know. Mr. Long, you're the last, but certainly not the least, because I'm telling you studied under Ron Carter. I want to know what that's like. We're gonna talk offline. The spirit of Quan hit you again? No. Uh-oh. Still got God. Are you there? There you go. I think, maybe. All right. Everybody muted. We got to treat it like we got to tech it up. I think you stuck. I'm not mean. I'm not going to screenshot that. I used to do that. I'd make a meme out of somebody quick. Like, but I'm not going to do it. You might have to come in and come back out. Hope it's not an iPhone. Yeah, I'm coming for you, iPhone people. I'm gonna put. Oh, there you go. No, I think that's Mr. Ford. Stop unmuting, man. That was probably you. You look guilty. You just look guilty, like kids in my classroom.
All right.
Ramona.
So just
All right. The next question.
Background.
The next question. This is where we start to get a little on the off the cuff. Is our community supportive of classically trained Black musicians? That when I say our community, I'm talking about the family. I'm talking about the us. You know, we know who the us is, like whether that is your own personal family, your friends. I just remember in college, it was a little interesting if they weren't in the band. It was like, we ain't always bang with each other. It was like, what? Free time? You think I have free time? So is our community supportive of classically trained Black musicians? And I take the word classically not as necessarily classical music, just we studied music as a profession, not just, you know, they put the oil on our forehead at church and let us mess up until we messed up. You know what I'm seeing? Some of y'all know what I mean. They just put that baby on the organ and let them go. So give it. Anybody church finger? Mm-mm. All right, Manny Scott, you got the floor.
That is a highly specific question, and I guess I try to stay out of generalizations. I know that I had 2 conversations when I was going to college, because I was also straight A or AB honor student and all that stuff. I had the conversation of being a musician and being an educator, or the conversation of using, you know, because I was intelligent in every other place, that to get, you know, a higher paying job or something like that. Of course, I was still allowed to pursue what I wanted, but I know sometimes the conversation can go the other way. I know there are a lot of people who don't want you to be musicians because they always assume that there is no money in it, or the musician they assume that you're going to be is something like a rapper or something like that. Not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but when they assume that it comes with, you know, sex, money, drugs, and all that stuff, and they put all musicians into that general category, making it a bad thing, when, you know, they don't even take the time to research what you're doing. It's kind of like, if you've been in band and concert band this whole time, where is it in your mind that you thought I wanted to be a musician as a rapper or something like that? Like, what did you even, you know? But I think that the families that support it, with family that supports the art, it does, and they do. But I am not sure if that is common within our families and our communities, just because, you know, when you grow up without much and everybody wants to get out of it, you want your child to do the best to get out of it. And if the first thing you think to get out of being in poverty or anything like that is engineer, lawyer, doctor, then that's exactly what you're going to push your children to be, as opposed to a musician.
And I think that's interesting because I teach a very diverse population. My school is very diverse, and it is the largest school in my district. And there are definitely these stereotypes that even come. We might think they're positive stereotypes, but sometimes not so much. Like all of my students who are Nigerian, you know, their parents not really wanting them to focus on music, because they're looking at it like you need to do something that's going to make you money. Like, you know, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be something that is going to return my investment, so to speak. And so we do have students in the VPA program that I can tell they're not so committed. And I always wonder what that support looked like at home. Because here I am, you're in this program, you auditioned to get in this. And I'm like, you got to practice. And I can just sometimes see like this disconnect. Mr. Long, you're back.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. Got a little delay, but we can hear you. So the question is, is our community, are we supportive of classically trained Black musicians? I'm gonna go last. I'm gonna keep it moving though. Church finger, I'm gonna call you. All right. Jeb, I'm gonna call you by your nickname. If you don't,
Yeah, I'll definitely tackle this one. I'm gonna say no, and the reasons there's a wide variety of reasons for sure, and I definitely had wide variety of conversations with my family, my mom in particular, just because she's never had to deal with a 1099 anything, and in our world, if you're not W-2, if you don't work, you don't get paid. So you can't do things so much last minute, but it also gives you freedom. So sometimes she'll call and be like, oh, you're just at the house. Yeah, because I'm not on the road. But like if they do call, I have to go on the road, then that means I can't go do something. So, you have to have certain conversations where you kind of have to just understand what it is. There's a couple other things that I think stereotype wise comes with our community. And you say you want to do music, like, oh, you're a rapper. Nope. I choose not to do that. I actually accepted the fact that I'm going to play behind them. That way I don't have the same problems they have. There's also a stigma that's there where it's like, oh, you're a musician. Oh, what bars do you play at? I don't actually. I play for 10,000 people on a regular basis. Oh, what do you do? So it gets to be one of those situations where a lot of times, and I think probably everybody here is like, oh, what do you do? It's like, oh, I'm a musician. Oh, okay, well, what is your real job? Excuse me? Like, no, this is what I do. Like, so I think no. I think our families, when they see what we do eventually, and you get them, in my world anyway, I was like, oh, I can bring you backstage, and because you're my mom, you can meet the artist and do certain things like that. It's like, wait. I'm literally remember flying my mom to Tampa when I was playing there, and she's like, wait, you didn't have to bring anything? No. You didn't have to set up anything? No. They're paying you to be here? That's correct. And you guys took that bus of it? I did. And you have a hotel? Uh-huh. Oh, you really do this? Yeah, mom. Like, I haven't asked you for anything. So it's one of those things where until they see it, then they believe it, but it's not something that's in our community directly, because we are doing a wide variety of things and they want to see other things. But then when you show them there's another way and that this is very possible, then they become believers and then they understand.
I feel that kind of, it takes a little while. It took a while for my parents to bite the apple. They were supportive-ish. Like, I was an English major when I first got to Morgan. I know, Seychelles, like, what? Yeah, just because, like, it was safe. Like, be a teacher. Like, as Black people, especially like the generation, my parents are baby boomers. That's their generation. They were told to go find jobs that we're accepted. We're accepted as a teacher. We're accepted, and in a higher end, be a doctor, lawyer. Go into something that's going to bring money home constantly and consistently, so you do not have to struggle. And then they still struggle. And I think our generation kind of saw some of the struggle, even with these type of jobs. Like, but you're unhappy. And that, I always feel like they did what they needed to do with what they could do with what they were given. And they empowered us to kind of be able to seek out things that we are passionate about and love and thrive through it, which is the whole point of this topic, is thriving in it, not just surviving in it. I think that's dope. And that disconnect of you can make money off of this. Let me tell you, my clarinet don't come out the basement unless there's a certain amount. And I don't even think I'm that good. But just the fact that I invested in myself and I went to school for this, just a certain amount of money is the only thing that's gonna, if you my friend, maybe, but it's certain, not leave my house. I'm just not. How many people got that? Raise your hand if you got a dollar amount right now. I ain't gonna ask you to say it because I want to feel bad about myself. But give me like the church finger, the hand up. There's an amount of money that is requisite before you even get in your car and turn it on, especially after the pandemic. Because we get abused. That's anybody else that was used. Is that the church finger, Scott, or you want to chime in?
Church finger right there.
Church finger. Let's talk about, so we got family. Raise your hand if your family was supportive. I don't know. I think Mrs. Scott, he might be raising it in slow motion or not. Sort of, kind of. All right. So we talked about family. What about friends? And I'm going to say non-musician friends. Supportive? Uh-oh. Right now you doing that thing. Ramona?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because, like I said, I ended up doing my undergrad as a fine arts and music major, but it was like a weird situation with that school, and they were actually phasing the program out, which I didn't know until after I got there. So that was tons of fun. But so most of my friends were not musicians or artists, right? And so it just took them a while to understand, you know, if we would get back on campus, maybe after going to do something, and it's like 9, 10 o'clock, I'm like, all right, y'all, I gotta go practice. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, man, time is money. Like, I gotta go practice. So it was just like getting them to understand that, and they would kind of make fun of me sometimes and all that. But once they actually saw what I do, then they kind of got it. They're like, oh, okay. But they became supportive over time. But initially, because they never saw it up close with the processes. So once they kind of understood that, then they were like, all right. Then they got used. They're like, oh, she want to go practice. Okay, well, we already know what that's about. Like, so it was definitely interesting to see that evolution, though. And now, they're of course incredibly supportive. Any of my non-musician friends are very supportive of what I do. And my closest friends are actually non-musicians. I mean, I do have some very close musician friends, but like my high school type ride or dies are not actually musicians. So it's been an interesting journey in that sense. But again, back to what Jeb was saying, it came after seeing, after experiencing it. I think initially our community does have a hard time kind of grasping the concept.
Yeah, I think that concept of what it entails, it's like a mystery. And I feel like people, it's like school lunch where it's that day you get that tray and you look at it and it smells good, but you don't trust it because you don't know what's inside of it. I feel like music performance for Black people, especially outside of some of those other domains of music that's been kind of the place where we created spaces for ourselves, like jazz is a creation and a space for ourselves where we didn't necessarily have a space, and other art forms like, hip hop. We don't trust it because we don't know what it tastes like. Not enough people. Like some of us, and this is another question off the cuff. How many of you are first generation college students? First generation music major. So when we start narrowing it down, like some of us have family that went to college. I didn't. I was the test dummy. They didn't understand a lot of things. And then to say I'm a major in music is like, what? And then it's like, what does that entail? What are you going to do with that? I'm going to teach music. And then the stereotypes, oh, you're going to get cut. First, I've never lost a job. I've never been cut. Matter of fact, I don't think outside of maybe 2 times, I've never applied for a job that I didn't get. And they don't understand that sometimes because the narrative behind just music education, music performance in general is already negative in some lights. And then you're going to do something, you're going to perform like my family's from the South. I'm just going to say it. You're going to perform white music. That's something my grandmother would have said. God bless her soul. But she would have said, you're going to go study that white. You're going to go around them. They're not going to like you. That's not safe. That's not safe. And this comes from a place of protection. I think sometimes I come from that deep South family where I'm the first generation college student. So go do something real. And then, okay, we see it. And now they at every game. Now they at every concert. But they didn't know what it tastes like. So it was scary. Difference is scary. Anybody else want to chime in on community support? let's just talk community. Right now.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So I was lucky and fortunate to have parents that really supported being a musician. And my mom was the one that got me into piano lessons when I was 6. I had a good music community around me in school too, like from the band and chorus and orchestra directors I had growing up, that always pushed for me, like getting private lessons, taking auditions for like the youth symphony, always making sure I was going to like the district and state and all that kind of stuff, auditions. And it was interesting in that fact, but, outside of the actual family, there's always confusion of me going in music and going to play in an orchestra and being the one, maybe 2 Black people in this, youth orchestra when I was in school, being the one spec at all district, especially being an oboist. There wasn't many of us, even like all my friends were trying to push, we're going to A&T, we're going to go to the HBCU. They don't have my instrument as a major. There's no oboe teacher there for me. I am the oboe teacher that's there for them now. There was not one there for me when I was growing up. But I went to an arts conservatory. So the friends that I made during college were the ones that are really supportive. They're all artists though, so they understand what we're going through. Even if they're not musicians, they're dancers. They're in the like tech world and like behind film and setting stages for theater and all that kind of stuff. They're the ones that are always supporting because they're either there to perform themselves, helping out, or they're in the audience cheering you on because they know what you're doing. They know what kind of work you put into it. I had that those friends. I didn't have many friends outside of that when I was in college because one, when we leave from doing lunch or dinner or something, we're all headed to the practice room together. Or one of us is going to take a nap real quick before we go back to the practice room at 11 o'clock that night to finish off another couple of hours of practice before they shut the building down and say, kick everybody out. So, we were all in it together then. But yeah, outside of that, I didn't have many supportive people out that weren't direct family that were coming to the concerts because their son was playing, or chosen family of musician artist friends that were supporting the artists that were beside them. We're going to see each other's plays, we're going to see each other's musicals, we're going to see each other's orchestra and band and chamber music concerts. But yeah, it was an interesting experience leaving my 99% Black high school and not going to the 99% Black college and going to the Arts Conservatory where, there was a good maybe 10 of us in the School of Music altogether that during my 4 years, I was already 6 years there for my master's too, that were, not there.
And I think that the experience between like if you're at an HBCU versus a PWI, now I have degrees from both, they have similarities, but they have some egregious differences that when we're honest with ourselves, like I think one important thing that, as somebody coming from an HBCU, it is so important for someone to be there that teaches the instrument that you play. And we have some financial issues that are in the way of that, and that's just real. But it's very important because that's more of that seeing yourself reflected too. Because if they don't look like you, if none of the adjuncts look like you, if none of the studio professors look like you, it can, subconsciously put in your mind that I might have a hard time thriving in this. Like I might, and I felt like that. I said, I don't think I'm gonna thrive in this. So I think I'm too far behind. I think I'm struggling enough. I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't want to embarrass my family. I don't want them to be right. You went for music. I don't know.
You still say that today. I need you to stop saying that.
Yeah.
You still say that. You said that earlier today on the podcast. You gotta stop saying that to yourself.
Yeah, but it's real. I felt like my son was behind me because my son see, people with kids, you can feel your kid just about to interrupt something. Say something like, yep. It's like they sense you're busy. I'm here. But we love them though. But yeah, it is what it is. It does happen. But not having somebody there to teach what it is that you want to do. And that's in every aspect and domain. Like jazz, you know, because sometimes we could be too classical heavy, and not really be creating a well-rounded musician. So I'm off the cuff. The question is, do you feel like your university or your training made you a well-rounded musician?
I'll answer. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So undergrad, I went to Northern Illinois University, and I was a jazz studies major. And part of our requirement was to have to do 2 years of classical percussion. So a lot of people think I just play hip hop. Grew up in the church, think I just play gospel drums, but I can play marimba, I can play hand drums, I can play a little steel drums, and I can play classical repertoire on any instrument, timpani, snare drum. So I feel that NIU did prepare me for that. And as a real musician in the real world, I don't just do jazz. Yes, I have 2 jazz studies degrees, but now I teach. So I came about performing a different way. I always wanted to perform. My father was a principal for 48 years. I never wanted to teach. And I started teaching music at age 18. And so then in 2014, I went back and got my master's in music education after performing on cruise ships and touring with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. And still, I now perform and teach, but definitely well-rounded from my university.
And we all know that's a stereotype. Drummers, is that a stereotype? Percussionists, is that a stereotype? When you Black, like, oh, you play this. Like,
I have a crazy experience if you want to hear it.
Oh boy.
Actually, at school, going into my second semester in Berkeley, you have to audition every semester to figure out what tier you're going to be in. And I'm sure that might be like every school, right? I won't just say Berkeley, but that's where I have to speak from. Literally, I was on a panel, or I wasn't on a panel, but I had to audition in front of a panel. And essentially what it takes is like grade 5s. You essentially give them your music and they play it with you. Now, I picked the song 4. It's a jazz standard. I'm swinging. That's like my principal thing at that time. Genre was jazz. The white professor literally said, oh, he plays gospel. The Black trumpet player professor was like, are you kidding me? You didn't just hear this man swing? Literally. And I was like, thanks. It was a real thing. He literally just heard gospel drums for some reason. I'm like, I'd played no gospel licks at all. Very fascinating. So yes, stereotype is very real.
Any of the percussionists want to chime in? Because I feel like I think y'all get some of the gnarliest ones. That's my personal opinion. I mean, I think we all get some, but man, I think to be Black and play anything that looks like it is part of our culture, looks like, keyword, we get bounced in. Anybody have a stereotype that you just, like a pet peeve, you know it's happening before it happened, and it's like you it's like a train coming, and you just hoping that it doesn't hit, and then when it hit, it's like, damn, here you go. Seychelle.
Yes, I will say I primarily play baritone saxophone, and I just have to say that whenever, for the most part, lately I feel like it's starting to change, but for a very long time, it was assumed that I was the weakest player simply because I was on the baritone part, and I used to find that maddening a little bit. I like to play the baritone saxophone. That's why I play baritone saxophone. It's my favorite. And I also think it's the least understood. It still is, we're working on some things in the saxophone. I'll put it that way. It's whenever I talk, I think my son is like, oh, are we talking again, Mom? Sorry. So yeah, that's something that I've really found has been a bit of a barrier. In the last few years, I do feel I'm able to be in spaces where that might not be the general just assumption. I don't know if that's maybe because people have been able to kind of start seeing some of the work that not only North Star Duo is doing, but there's a lot of wonderful saxophonists that have been commissioning and performing more works on baritone sax. So I feel like that understanding of that instrument is starting to like happen more, but I think until then, it was just very much if I walked into the space, that really was the assumption in it. And it used to drive me crazy to have to kind of explain that, no, I just like that instrument. And of course, now it's I own this instrument because everybody doesn't own a baritone saxophone. So there's also that. And so oftentimes our thought is just, if you're on soprano or you're on alto, like you must be like the best player. And I'm like, well, what if everybody's just really good? Somebody needs to play the baritone sax part. Like that's going to have to happen. So that for me is something that I work on trying to change that narrative of each of these saxophones and their abilities and, their exploration and what they can contribute and how much skill all of them actually require in order to play them well. So.
And I think it's important for people to know, and if we have viewers that don't know, like an instrument family isn't skill based. Like I put kids on bass clarinet because they want to play bass clarinet, or I need bass clarinet, and they have good air support. So I know they're not going to be singing in the background, so to speak. Like they're going to put some gusto in it. I need that. They're not going to be afraid of or intimidated by its size. But yeah, there is a stereotype, even within the families, like, oh, if you play this, you're better. Like they even do that in orchestra. Really bad. Really bad. And I know, Mr. Ford, you can identify with that. If it's not violin, you suck. And that's just kind of how they, some people treat it. As far as training goes in community and support, what do you think we need for the community to kind of engage a little bit more with music performers, classically trained performers, or even like starting them out younger? Because I do feel like in general, we might be starting a little late, too late to the party. That's how I felt. Too late to the party. That's a church finger. Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I think one thing that we need is, more representation. Like I'm playing currently with Color Music Festival. I'm actually playing with them in a few weeks now in Charleston, and seeing some kids, see a Black orchestra or Black orchestra members, but seeing all Black orchestra on stage for the first time, you can kind of see it in their eyes. This is all like, wait a minute, there's some of people that look like me playing in this group. This whole group looks like me is a big moment. I didn't get to see that much growing up. I did have some amazing Black women that were in the symphony here that were a lot of my mentors, and they really kind of pushed me into being a performer and being where I am, and kind of held my hand and pulled me along the way and pushed me along the way and kicked me in the butt sometimes. But they having more of us and more representation is, I think, the first big thing. Many people don't think they can start that early. They think that is inaccessible, and a lot of our community thinks that that's not something that we do. But a lot of us, compared to where we actually started and when we actually started our instruments, have far exceeded where some of our peers who started well before us actually have. And it's kind of amazing that I didn't start oboe till I was 14. I was a violinist up to that point, and it was an amazing experience, kind of switching to oboe and starting to see how I took to it, and how I took to the environment of playing oboe, and then going into things like making reeds, doing all the other stuff that's really, really oboe specific. But seeing me being like the one of, I think there was two when I came in, and now that he graduated right during my first year, and I was the only Black oboist in the school for at least 6 years. I'm not sure what happened after I left, after I graduated. And there are some Black oboists in the school that I teach at now, because I teach at the school that I went to. But it's always been interesting, like, seeing us and seeing how we can form our instrument to be our instrument rather than someone else's. And we just need more people that look like us in the field. And you go to an orchestra, you go see your kids, like the third graders, oftentimes in middle school systems, go to see an orchestra play, and it's none of us. And it's kind of disheartening where they see us and go, they see the orchestra and go, that's not for me. Apparently, that's not something that I can do. That's not something that I see myself into. So I think that's going to be the first thing. Then just getting us. Hopefully, that will get people interested in starting earlier. I mean, that third grade start would be a great time to start some kid, even if it's not on the instrument they're going to play later on in life. Get them on piano, get them on violin. I mean, get them on something that will actually encourage them to continue their career later on.
How many people had private lessons before college? Yeah, I think it starts there. That's a hard sell. Oh, I got to put my hand up. I did. My middle school band director was like, if you are a section leader, you need private lessons. And I know we all got private lessons. I know my parents paid, but I don't think everybody paid. I think he really worked out some magical deals where the section leaders at least got private lessons, because he probably felt like those were the kids who were really serious. And that's just what he went with. So I hope that people hearing this hear what we're really saying. If your kid's interested in it, they give them private lessons, and don't go into that they're going to quit, because we don't think like that when it comes to other things. And we know what those other things can be that we will put money into in time, knowing that our child is never going to walk down a runway, knowing our child is never going to the NFL, not because just the odds, just the sheer number of it. They got a better chance of getting a music scholarship, even if they're not a music major, than making into somebody's team. That's just real. They have better odds getting into medical school if they play an instrument. My husband literally was at a job, and he went to a hospital around the holiday season, and there was a French horn quartet. They were all doctors in the building. You want to know why? Because that's on the list when people apply to medical school. Do you play an instrument? They're looking for people who have discipline and meticulous skills where you have to hone in and do something the same way every time. That's like a perfect surgeon. So we know that it's not a waste of money, because at the least there's some soft skills. If they decide not to do it, there's some soft skills that's developed. Anybody want to chime in on that? Mr. Scott.
Yeah, on the topic of just what we need, I do like exposure, but I think exposure also like as early as possible, and then also by you. When I was growing up in DeKalb County is a predominantly Black county, and every band had every school had, you could expect the band or a choir, at least maybe an orchestra. And I thought that was the norm. And then I got up here to teach in New York, and half of these middle schools have not a band, maybe a choir. And I was like, what the heck is going on? I moved to New York City to be a musician. Why is it that New York City does not have adequate music programs at the middle school level? And it was ridiculous. And I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to fix this? One is getting the people in that want to do that. And one thing I had to learn, not only do I need to expose my kids to it, I need to continue to perform. As I told y'all, Stomp just closed, but the Thursday before we closed, we had the opportunity, we worked it out with Stomp, we ended up bringing 150 students to go see the show. And I can tell since that day how their mind has changed, of seeing somebody that looks like them on stage getting to go to Manhattan, where Manhattan is just a train ride away, but some of these kids from Brooklyn think that Manhattan is a lifetime away when it's literally a train ride down the street, and getting them to see that and do that inspires them to do more. And then also me advocating at my own school. Luckily, I'm at a school where my principal is just like, you know what, you're building this program from the ground up, whatever you need, you got it. You know, I got them lessons, you know, group lessons. I can't do individual private yet, but we are doing group lessons with the Brooklyn Conservatory of Music. And it took me to advocate for that. And I think especially as educators teaching at the public school level, at predominantly Black or brown schools, it's really up to us. Well, I don't know if it's the problem. I just can speak for New York City because I have two different experiences. New York City, I just know it's up to us to create these opportunities because it doesn't exist. And I also learned that people don't think it does. I did a music education conference recently, music education in New York City conference or gathering. And I was talking to an adjudicator for the NYSMA festival. And I told him that I had a band, and he automatically assumed that I was playing jazz. I was like, no, I have a concert band. We play concert music. And he just seemed so surprised. And I'm like, see, this is the problem. This is the problem. So exposing kids, not only us getting in these orchestras, but then taking kids at all levels, like, hey, this is an orchestra, but it'd be great to take them and see them. But then they also see you perform as an educator so they can go see you. I love the fact that we're out to go see me in Stomp. And when I get my next gig, they can go and see me or whatever gig that is, just so they can see. You bring it back to the school and just build that community of music. There's a life in that, you know, and there's you in it too.
I think that is such a powerful statement. There's you in it. Like, it's one thing to see it. It's another thing to believe that you belong in it. Like I said, I think that's where my family stem from, is that they could never imagine that they belong. And that's not unique, Manny. I taught in Baltimore City schools for 15 years. And I can't tell you how many times I've taken my group somewhere and the comments is just like, please don't say that out loud again. And not just from white people, from people who look like you. Principals, like, why would you want that ensemble? Well, I want all the ensembles. I want all the ensembles because I don't know what this child's going to do. And I would feel like a bad educator if I pigeonhole them based off of what it is that the world might present in a limited way. Like, I want them to know that jazz exists. And if they want to be a hip hop artist, I have some students that are in hip hop heavy. And it started with a project from my classroom where I did a whole hip hop unit and taught them about the structure of a rap song and taught them about how their vocabulary needed to be very extensive. And they performed. They did what it is that was promoted, but they also played trumpet. You know, they played trumpet and bass clarinets and stuff. And some of them got into the School of for the Arts here and went on to another domain of music. But all of that is what's good for the gander. It all helps developmentally to me. But you're right. It's a problem that goes across the board. I have put in the chat some organizations, some festivals. It's kind of hard to type, look, and all that other stuff, but I was trying to throw them in. If you're on the panel and you throw some more in, that's what we need. We need resources. That's what I wanted to say. We need to know what can we do when we can't get students private lessons because they can't afford it or we can't afford to give it to them. We need to know that there are organizations that promote classical musicians and have fellowships, like Sphinx organization, like Gateway Music Festival, like Music Fall, like all of these wonderful organizations that will promote and help close those gaps. I have a question because I don't want to keep y'all here all night because I feel like y'all gonna start to look at me like, lady. I'm gonna try to stick to, we are at an hour and 22 minutes. I'm gonna try to do an hour and 35 minutes. We might not get to all the questions, 35, 40 minutes. And if you have to go listen, it's Friday. I'm just happy you decided to spend it with me. Truly, truly thankful. And these are nuggets that we're gonna share. This, you know, when this broadcast ends, share that link, share it in your network, share it to people who look like us and people who don't look like us, because that's important too. But the question that drives the topic, are we thriving or just surviving as Black musicians? Why or why not? Are we thriving? So, put the church finger up. Tell me if you think you're thriving. And be honest, if you're not thriving, talk about why. And maybe, us as a family, we can help each other, or we could identify why are we thriving or just surviving as Black musicians? Why or why not? You can take it on a personal note or a general note. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll start it. Yeah, okay.
Well, you go, and I already see. Mr. Long, you gonna go next?
No, I'll let him go if he's already here. I know he was having some issues.
Yeah. Are you still with us?
Is he back?
Oh no.
All right, I'll start and if he comes back, I'll pipe down. I'll say for myself, I'm thriving. I live in Los Angeles. I live alone. So if you live in Los Angeles and you live alone, you're okay. I don't live in the ghetto either. And I just play music as a living. So I would say thriving in that sense. But as a community, and I'll specifically say in the secular live world, I would say no, we're not thriving. Oftentimes you'll get management that will undercut you or try to give you a lower rate, or they'll get someone new to do something, and we don't talk very much about rates in our community. You ask someone how much they make on a gig, and I'm not saying some rando, but if we work, we're in the same thing, we're acquaintances, and I'm like, hey, like, just looking for a little advice on this, how do I negotiate this thing, and you don't want to talk to me, well, that's not really helping you either, because the only people that benefit by us being silent about our rates is management. When we talk to each other about the rates, then we know we're at least maybe the person before you left that gig where they left at. Okay, that's a great starting point. So now you can negotiate based off your experience where they go from. Oftentimes people will take less, as well as management now ask you to do more. It's not common in our world where you might have to necessarily not double on an instrument, but you might have to double, meaning, okay, you play drums, but do you also run playback? Okay, do you play keys, but can you do playback? Okay, you do keys, but then you also play guitar. And they'll ask you to do a bunch of different things, but they'll still pay you as if it's one thing. And we don't have a union in our world. There's no union that's championing for us. There's no one coming behind them, checking anybody's P's and Q's and making sure they're okay. You have to negotiate every single term. You may have a fantastic musical director that might kind of co-sign some stuff, but even that, your contract is your contract, not the band's contract. So oftentimes you do have those people that are willing to take less and they'll do more and all this other stuff. But because I'm not that guy that wants to not share numbers, the general rule for myself is if I can't pay all my bills here in 1 week of tour, I'm not going. So that's how it works when they start with the number. And then depending on their ask and all this other stuff and how long I'm out, I may come down a little bit. For example, if you're offering me 6 months of work, well, after those 6 months, I don't really have to work the rest of the year. I could, but not realizing those 6 months, you're also saying no to 6 months of other opportunities that are coming your way. So you have to prepare yourself financially to maybe not have a gig, especially if you're out, let's say middle of spring. Well, all festivals are happening during that time. Rehearsals for winter is coming up. People are gearing up for the next season. You might miss a ton of calls because you're just not around. So if you don't plan for those things, you can mess yourself up. And a lot of times the younger guys are not realizing it and they won't ask the OGs for help. And you have those real OGs who are like gatekeepers and don't want to give up anything, meaning information. And that runs into a whole nother situation where it's like, why not help me? Like, you already have the rapport, you already have the relationships, you've already worked with the artist. I'm not looking for your gig. I just want the information so at least I can figure out even if this is right for me. And they don't want to do that. So I would say individuals are thriving. As a community, maybe not so much. I think it's very fixable, but until we start demanding certain things, and I'll give one other real life situation, is that you have A-list artists such as Kendrick Lamar, The Weeknd, all these people that are putting their bands in tents. They're putting their bands down in like pits okay, well, your value goes down now because if you're not seen, I could just make you record this entire show in a week, pay you guys X amount of dollars if you're not going to be seen anyway. You may want to start demanding getting on someone's stage, or at least requiring something like that to happen, so you at least have value for the people that are after you. Because if you do it and you are the cream of the crop, what happens with the B, C list, D list artists that are able to do whatever, and they don't have the budgets that you all have? So those types of conversations are big and don't happen.
Ooh, child. That not paying your musicians, not paying them where they're worth, and not just paying them, but treating them like they're humans. Robert Glasper is notorious for that interview with one of some people's beloved artists. But what that brother was saying hit home to a lot of people is being treated like dirt, and you are skilled and talented, and it not being acceptable. Just because you got this Grammy doesn't mean you get to treat me like crap. And there is a little bit of integrity you have to have with your own worth. Like, am I worth more than this, or do I need to pay my bills? And that's between the thriving and surviving. I think when you thriving, you don't, all money ain't good money. Mr. Long.
Can you all hear me now? Okay. So I think as a Black educator and Black musician, I'm doing pretty well here in the Midwest. Like I was saying earlier, I play for a couple of different theater shows. The St. Louis Muni is the largest outside theater. It seats 11,000 people, and I've been playing with them for the past 2 years. Hopefully, I'll be with them again this season. I was actually one of the first American musicians to be hired with them since 2010. So that says a lot. And then I play for the St. Louis Black Repertory Theater Company. And like Mr. Scott said earlier, every time I'm performing somewhere, I try to get my students to come see, so they see it and they believe it. And so actually this summer, I'll be taking 8 students to Europe. And so they've seen me play with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. So they know how to handle themselves on stage as young professional musicians.
Ramona, I'm passing you the ball.
Yeah, it's no problem. Because I did want to talk a little bit about this, because I think Jeb hit on this a little bit already. I feel like, yeah, I'm kind of thriving now, but it took a long time because there was just so much either misinformation or just not connecting all the way with the right people. I mean, don't get me wrong, early on in my career, I was very, very lucky that I had the people who I did have in my corner. And I was very lucky to have grown up in Philly, to be honest, because Philly has a culture of incredible classical Black musicians. I mean, that just is what it is. I also had incredible Black music educators who, when they saw kids like me and other kids of color who had that potential, they immediately jumped on us, and they were on us like white on rice, for a lack of a better term. And they pushed us, and they made sure that we got what we needed, that we got to the district festivals and all that kind of stuff. But every school district does not have that. So again, I do realize I was kind of lucky in that sense. But once I really kind of got out there on my own, it was time for me to make my own way. You know, there were a lot of missteps and a lot of just kind of figuring it out, because, unfortunately, when we are being trained in school, especially if you go to a conservatory, all we're taught how to do is play. Like, that's like it, and then they just throw us out there, and then we've got no other ways to figure out how in the world to make this work. Because God forbid, if you don't get that symphony orchestra gig, then it's like, okay, what else do we do? And finding chamber music, and Seychelle can relate to this, was such a really cool thing. But that's a really big, you got to make your own way out of it type of business, and there's no pathway. for that. There are some schools who are kind of doing more entrepreneurship classes now, but it's like we had to figure that out on our own. And being at Adelante Wins, like, and I think one of my colleagues is here in the chat, Sabrina, who's another double read player of color, just kind of like out there in the double read world. We had Amani Wins as our standard, and as our mentors, and that was it. And they paved the way, but there's no set standard, there's no set way that people are really trying to help us do this. So I feel like, yeah, we get to thrive eventually, but a lot of times there's a lot of missteps that we're not being taught how to avoid early on. And that starts, that can start really as early as high school, right? Because picking the right school the right college to go to can have a lot to do with what direction your career takes. You know what I mean? So I think that we need to try as much as we can to help some of the younger generation, like, learn from our mistakes. I think we can get to be more thriving. But we still trying to figure it out.
And I was gonna say, before we pass this on, that I agree, definitely. Like, just the fact that it's a business. Jeb is saying you gotta honor yourself, value yourself, and know that you're worth it. Bernard is saying, it's okay to be confident in what it is that you do. Like, you should be confident in what it is that you do, and be able to present yourself in a way that will get the job, because presentation is part of it. And Ramona, you hit it. Like, we can't be gatekeepers to this thing. That's the word that I heard that hit home. I'm about to make a topic off of gatekeeping. I had to write it down. If you saw me looking like, I was like, this is good, I gotta take notes like I'm in class. We can't gatekeep this. We owe it to the next to make it not as hard. Like, we don't have to have that pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That's stupid. That hurts. That doesn't hurt us. That hurts us. It doesn't help us to thrive. And if you're confident about what it is you do anyway, you shouldn't be intimidated by giving a nugget to somebody else. If you confident, everybody hate Coach Prime right now, but if my confidence offends you, why should your confidence? I'm confident in what it is I can do. You should be confident in what it is that you can do. We definitely need business classes. Not all performance majors have business classes offered to them. Like you said, Ramona, some schools are doing a good job. Some schools, not so much. You get taught how to play. Band directors get taught how to play. And guess what? That don't help you with the trombone section if you are a clarinet player. It doesn't help you with a lesson plan. So, Seychelle, are we thriving or just surviving?
So I think it's a little bit of both. And I'll just go a little bit more personal based on my experience, because I am primarily a classical saxophonist, and we've talked a lot about orchestra. And orchestra for a classical saxophonist is not the same in terms of just being allowed in the space in general because of our instrument, much less anything else. And I do feel really strongly, just to backtrack for a moment, that the disconnect that I think is prevalent, particularly in BIPOC communities in classical music, the stage, musicians on the stage and the audience being away from that stage, I view that as a physical manifestation of what we see in like music education, our access to private lessons, our access to classical music, our access to BIPOC classical musicians, that separation, it's permeated all through the entire institution. I just think we can physically see it when we're in a hall and all those people are on the stage, and there is distance. There's something that keeps us apart from that. So as a saxophonist, though, when I get to orchestra, I have always found it something that is completely separated, whether it is as a professional or it is in school. I feel like there is some wonderful, wonderful orchestral rep that includes saxophonists. No shade to the doublers, because I do play some flute and clarinet in the basement too, and I do play piano out in the world too, but not someone that happens to double and can play the alto sax for 8 bars. I'm talking like real pieces that require a saxophonist who's put in that time, who has the command of that instrument, full range of that instrument, all extended techniques. There's really amazing works out there. They're not being programmed. I think that for me, as a saxophonist, and the relationship saxophonists have with the general public is different. When they see saxophone, they immediately think jazz or gospel or any of these popular genres. When I perform, people are like, I did not know that the saxophone even had a classical rep at all. I didn't realize that that was even a thing. And so I find I'm constantly in spaces where I am providing context, which is something I believe is also very important in including representation, but context with families and the community, how we do our jobs and what different types of styles and music is out there that should be accessible to all. So sorry, I'm trying to like put a lot into like very short. So as a saxophonist, I feel like I'm thriving because I had to create a lot of opportunities that I felt those spaces were just not accessible to me simply because of my instrument. I am also someone, being a biracial woman, that often people do not know what my race or ethnicity is. And I have found that to become a barrier. And I've talked to you about this privately, Krystal, about being in spaces that because of how I look and how people assume my background is, or what my background is, and the barriers that I've then had to deal with from that. In some ways, I feel like I'm surviving because as a parent of a little one, that was something I was very unprepared for, of kind of like not being able to play for a certain amount of months and then having to kind of like get some of that momentum back after I was able to kind of like, get my family life situated and then kind of return back to my career. That was something else that is something I currently still am kind of like juggling as a parent of a little one, and I know I'm not alone in this because I've been seeing folks talk about, this other beast out there of being a performing parent and what that is like as well. So yeah, I'm gonna put all that in there. I know that was a lot, and I'm gonna shamelessly just because I saw Lauren earlier give a happy early Founders Day, so I just want to return that out there too. Happy early Founders Day. But yes, I just think that there's a little bit of both, and I do think that we need to find a way to ensure that gatekeeping practices are not kind of infiltrating the pathways that we are creating, because folks sometimes want to hold on to everything, but we gotta make sure we can continue the legacies that are being built and pass them down. So.
Man, y'all killed it. Y'all killing it. Mr. Ford. You muted. There you go. You was about to go.
Yeah, I saw it, then go in. So I've had this like kind of thought about this for a while, and I feel like I'm at the point now I'm really thriving again. There was a point I feel like in time that I was thriving, and it's possibly that I wasn't thriving as fully as musically, but I was thriving for where I was. I started teaching college at the age of 22. So I felt like I was ahead of the game already, starting at that age and like pushing forward. Then I feel like I took some steps back. It feels like I'm again now pushing forward again, kind of with the opportunities I'm getting to do again. And still some ways I feel like I'm not seen. there's some avenues where I've like won auditions over people, and then they get asked to play for other things that I'm not asked to play for. Or I've been in situations where I've, just feel like I'm always overlooked in certain situations. Then other situations I feel like I'm put on, I'm not a pedestal, but I'm like put in the front, and they're pushing me forward. So it's lovely, like it's interesting seeing those two sides. Like in some ways, and what's really important to me now is that I'm thriving in those areas. And there's some other places I feel like I'm barely surviving in some of our world, going, why am I never asked? Why am I never included in this conversation? Why do I feel like I'm always pushed to the side? So it's interesting seeing how I'm both thriving in some ways and also surviving in some other ways. It's it's quite interesting. Along with what the show was saying, though, I get it too. I'm in the classical side of playing, and even in my doubling, I don't like the word doubling anymore because it feels like a connotation, but I'm a multiple woodwind player, and I'm our orchestra saxophonist, and I'm primarily not playing jazz. I'm actually usually playing some of that rep, Lieutenant KJ, and playing. We haven't played pictures yet, but I'm waiting for that one to come. But playing some of this rep that requires us to have demand on the instrument, and it's never programmed. Waiting for it to be programmed, and waiting for those moments where I'm like, let's just play this. Let's do Harayanos. Let's do all this stuff that requires a really, really good saxophonist, because I'm ready. I'm ready to go. We've done, I guess got the solo with the orchestra on the John Williams Catch Me If You Can, and that was a fun, loving concert for me. But it's very far and few that you get to play like saxophone as an orchestral musician too. Luckily, I'm also an oboist primarily, so I get that chance. But people forget that sometimes. People forget oftentimes that just because you play saxophone, you're not playing jazz. And it's more often than not playing jazz. I'm playing classical music as a saxophonist in quartets and quintets and doing all the other stuff, and getting to play in the orchestra when I get to play. So I feel you on that one.
It's strange, like how we can be doing well and then constantly feeling like we're not doing well, just depending on what it is, where it is, who it is. And I don't think it has to be one way or another. It's just a constant struggle of trying to continue. It's like, I can say even with a podcast, you're constantly like, you're always working. Anybody who thinks that being a musician is an easy way out. No, there's no clock. There's no like 9 to 5. It's, all of us have been in a rehearsal that was into the wee hours of the next day. That's more time to be on than a lot of people have been. You got a concert and you got called 2 weeks ago, and you're going to have one rehearsal. That's the type of pressure to deliver and be good, and failure is not an option. I think music performance majors really needed to hear this conversation. They really need to know everything that's going to tell, and study. You can't be missing your lessons. Like, and this is something that is a new thing I'm starting to hear. Like, you skipping lessons? I take that beating. I would go, ready or not. You chose this, ready or not. You go take that beating. And if you get sent home with your tail between your legs and you got to go sit in that practice room, that's what you signed up to do. My dad told me that after my first really long night in band. It was like, you chose this. He didn't say, oh, that's messed up. Why they keep me? And we got the community got to understand this is not a 9 to 5. This is a 7-Eleven job. You always open. If you want to make money, if you want to thrive, the clock doesn't really exist until you make enough money where you can turn it off. So I want to say thank y'all. We're going to have to probably do a part 2 of this. I know it, like, and it's okay. It's okay. It's my show. That's why I wanted my own show. I can say we're going to come back to this. We might come back to this in a month. because there's some things we gotta talk about. Family. So thank y'all. Y'all so dope. For real. Like, I'm telling you, like, this was a crazy idea of mine. And our producer, shout out to all of the Divine Nine who have been celebrating. Shout out to, in particular, Delta Delta, I can't even speak. Delta Sigma Theta on Friday the 13th, celebrating. Shout out to the Zetas. Shout out to the Alphas. Shout out to the Sigmas. Shout out. Enjoy. Don't turn up too much. You're not young no more. And good night. This is Diary of a Lady Band Director. Hit the like on the way out. Share. Subscribe to Passionist Network. Deuces, good people.